Los Angeles Chargers, you're on the clock. We are back with another 7-round team mock draft, and this time we're going to look at the Los Angeles Chargers. We'll talk cap situation, current depth chart, how their players graded out last year, free agents that are coming up, and then look at some potential team needs based on what I see. As always, make sure you guys drop your comments below, hit the like, sub, let's get to it. So when you look at the 2025 Chargers cap situation, they got some work to do. They got a lot of guys that are free agents. Almost half their defensive starters are free agents. They've got another significant amount of offensive players that are free agents. They're going to need to figure out what they're going to do there, and they're aging, especially on the defensive side. Think about some of the reps that some of their starters got, in Morgan Fox, Poona Ford, Khalil Mack. These are all guys that are at around above 30. And that's just on the defensive side. They've got plenty of offensive players that played significant reps that they're going to have to figure out what they're doing with. When you look at this roster, in terms of depth chart, obviously we know their quarterback is set. Justin Herbert is the dude, and he's going to do great things with this team. They need to get him some help. It'd be nice to get him some wide receivers, at least one. We know Ladd McConkey went ham last year and did well in this offense, and Quentin Johnston's continuing to develop, but Palmer's a free agent. J.K. Dobbins is a free agent. Do they re-sign him after his best season in the league? I think they probably look at that, but after that, you've got an aging vet and Gus Edwards. You've got a Michigan retread and Hassan Haskins. Vidal is a guy that they brought in that I think that they're still intrigued with. So on the offensive side, they could use some tight end help as well. Will Dissly is there, but Hurst is a free agent, and I think they could use a really high-end tight end to help this offense hum. We know that Jim Harbaugh loves his tight end. He's always had a good one for his team, so we know that they're probably going to look at that position. Bradley Bozeman, starter as their center. Do they re-sign him? He's at 30. There's going to be some interesting things on the offensive side. And then when you look at the defensive side, Morgan Fox, free agent. Poona Ford, free agent. Denzel Perryman, Khalil Mack, Christian Fulton. I mean, guys, a lot of their starters are free agents. So what do we do here? We're probably going to have to look at getting at least one edge rusher, maybe even a second edge rusher. I mean, there's some things there that are going to need to be looked at, and those aren't easy to come by. And then when you look at their graded players, if this matters to you, this is how their top players graded out in PFF. I think this gives us an idea of how important some of these defensive players were to them, and I think we're going to look at that side seriously in the draft. And on the other side of it, there's plenty of free agents, potential free agents. When you go to Spot Track and you look around, if they look at wide receiver help, they've got plenty of options there. If they're looking for running backs, there's some running backs that are going to be potentially available. I mean, when you look at Aaron Jones, who's up at 30, we got Najee Harris, A.J. Dillon, who's been hurt, Nick Chubb, who's been hurt as well and aging. I mean, so what happens with some of these free agents could be important to what the Chargers may do in the draft, but I'm not here to predict what free agents they look at. I'm just trying to give you guys an idea of what the picture looks like for them. When you look at some of their outside linebackers, they're obviously the top one on the available is their guy, but there are some other pieces that are out there. Obviously, if you look at these ages, a lot of these guys are getting closer to that 30 mark, up around or over. So there's going to be some concern there. Do we look to the draft to address some of these needs, and then look to free agency to look for, offensive players? I mean, that's going to be the conversation that they have, and they have to answer. I would love to know what you guys think. Are they going to address this in free agency? Are they going offensive guys? I mean, are they going to do a little bit of both like they did? With that being said, I want to jump back and talk about what I think their biggest needs are going to be. Edge, probably multiple. Does that come in the form of free agency and the draft? I would guess so. I would think they look to re-sign a guy of theirs, and then also they're going to look into the draft. But they also have some young guys. Tupelotu is a guy I think can continue to develop and will be a guy that they could look to replacing edge rusher help there. Wide receiver, I think free agency is a great place to look for a wide receiver because you have a couple that you like already in McConkey and Johnston, and then some depth guys that you are definitely intrigued by. So maybe they grab one in free agency. I'm not going to be jumping at early wide receivers in the draft. Tight end, I think probably in the draft, there's potential for it. There are a lot of really nice tight ends in this draft. Running back, I think this would be a draft to grab one if you wanted to grab one as a young one, but also there are free agents, center, DB, quarterback depth. I know it doesn't matter because you got a number one, but the backups are both free agents in Heineke and Stick. So, there could be a need to draft one. And they got a lot of draft picks. So with that being said, we're going to jump in here and start mock drafting for these Chargers. We got 11 picks to play with. A lot of great players in this draft at areas that I think can really help bolster the Chargers. We'll see here, we've seen some offensive linemen, we've seen some edge rushers, wide receivers go just before here on the clock, but the perfect player for what the Chargers need and could help them long term is sitting right there in Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. Dude is an Iron Man. This guy has not missed a rep in college. 6'6", he's right around the 300-pound mark, but he's fast. He's probably in the 4'7", 4'8" range. I think he's a mismatch nightmare as an edge rusher, and I think you could play him on either side. There's a lot to like about him, so I'm going to take him here for the Chargers because I think even if they aim for re-signing an older edge rusher that they've got on their roster, I still think they need another one. And if you can get a premium player early on in the draft, I think you have to do it. Back up on the clock here at pick 54, the Chargers have plenty of offensive weapons to choose from. Even if you look at PFF's top graded, one of the guys that I am going to pick here is available. I think when you look at Harbaugh's history, he's not afraid to target offensive players early. I know in his San Francisco days, he was drafting wide receivers in round 1. He was drafting running backs in 2 through 4. I mean, he's willing to take whatever position he wants. But I think if they don't re-sign J.K. Dobbins, I think running back becomes a critical piece here. I'm going to scroll through here just so you can see some of the top-rated available players based on PFF, just in case there's someone you'd rather them see in round 2. But I'm taking Caleb Johnson from Iowa. He was one of the most electric running backs in college this year. His vision is very good. He's a very decisive runner. I think he can develop in pass protection and become kind of a 3-down type back. And I think they still need that. I think that's a position of need for this team. And especially if they don't re-sign J.K. Dobbins. And back on the clock at pick 86, we've got DB help if you want to grab a corner here, if you want to grab a wide receiver here. There is tight end here, which I think is definitely going to be something I look at because I love Harold Fannin. I'm surprised he's actually sitting there at pick 91. So I'm not going to let it go any further. I'm running the card up to the board and grabbing us a really high-end athletic tight end here. I know that some that would have loved us to grab Colston Loveland, we didn't. We waited and went a different position. But Fannin is the total package. I mean, even when you saw him at practices here recently, he pops off the page. He's very quick. He's an athletic tight end. I think he's going to give them another dimension, and he's a good pass catcher. So plug him in this offense and really give them something that they need. Back on the board at pick 122, we've got plenty of options here. Want to grab depth at quarterback, we could grab Jackson Dart. Want to grab a wide receiver if we want to grab corner. We've got some defensive linemen. We got plenty of pieces here. I want to look at, and we're not doing any trades, so I know that there are trades available, but I want to look at interior offensive line and see what we've got here. I like McLaughlin. Not in love with Kendra. I love Monheim, but I think I'm going to wait and see if I can grab him at 159. He's going to be an interior piece that we look at. Okay, so I'm going to wait and see. I like McLaughlin, but I really like Monheim, and I've been trying to grab him in the 150 to 175 range in most of the drafts. So I'm going to wait on that, and let's take a look at our DBs. Let's see what we've got available in the corner room. And I think here the tier of players that I'm looking at for this pick would be Zy Alexander, Denzel Burke, and Dorian Strong. Don't get me wrong, Husey and Riley are intriguing players, but those are the 3 corners that I like the most right here. I think I'm leaning towards Denzel Burke just because, throughout college, he's got plenty of accolades. This kid has been able to ball at a high level and done really well doing it. He's a very smooth player in his back pedal. I think he's got ball hawking mentality, and I just think he's kind of just at the top of that tier for me. So I'm going Denzel Burke here, but if you told me it was Alexander or Strong at that pick, I wouldn't argue you. I think either one of them would be really nice pieces. All right, back up at 159. Let's see if our interior offensive lineman's still sitting here. He is. I'm going Monheim from USC. I think he could give you any of the positions on the interior. He could be your guard. He could be your center. Obviously, we know that they've got some solid interior players, but that centerpiece is what they're going to need. And I think Monheim would fit in really well with how they play. He's a nice athletic player. And the nice thing is you got plenty of picks to play with. So if you wanted a guy like him, or if you wanted to wait a little bit longer, I mean, there are some developmental players later in the draft that I think could be really intriguing as well. All right, back on the clock at pick 181. We're going to look at receiver here because there's kind of a tier of receivers that I really like that are available here that I think could step in and be impact players for the Chargers. I'm going to go Ty Felton from Maryland. And I think what puts him over the top for me of some of those guys that are there is his route running ability. He's good size, good speed, good athletic profile, but he's a really good route runner, and I think that's something that they're going to need. They also value, McConkey is really good in that. Johnston needs to continue to develop. Felton could step in and really help. I know they've got some other players on the team that they like as well, but we're going Felton there. All right, back on the clock at pick 198. We're just going to slam dunk it here. We're going to grab Curtis Rourke, get you a depth quarterback that can be kind of a nice, solid, smart quarterback. Rourke's big, he's 6'5", 220 plus, 230 plus. Kind of gives you some of those Justin Herbert type vibes when you look at the player. Obviously not nearly the same level of athlete, but he's played a lot of reps throughout college. He's very smart, and he did a lot with what he had. He's a game manager per se. He's good at delivering the ball with touch, timing. He can get into a rhythm, and I think he could play nicely in that type of offense, but he doesn't need to. Herbert's your guy. But if they only grab a free agent, or if they don't grab any free agents, they have plenty of picks late that they could grab a quarterback or two if they really wanted to and develop them. All right, back on the clock here at pick 210. I was just looking through the list here a little bit, and I think I'm going to grab them some more secondary help. Seeing a name like Malachi Moore sitting on the board available still here. He's got a high football IQ. He's played at a big-time program for many seasons, and he's done it well. I think he gives you kind of that ball hawk mentality, that big play mentality in the secondary. And at this point in the draft, when you're picking in the 200s and back, you're looking for guys with those tools and traits. You hear it all the time when you listen to the big wigs in the space talk about it. If they've got something special about them and you can grab it and develop it, why not? And I think Harbaugh could use a player like that in the secondary. I know we grabbed them a corner. We grabbed him a safety now. All right, back on the board at pick 215. Now we're starting to get real late in the draft. And as I was looking through the board, seeing what's here, there's a couple running backs. If we wanted to grab a second running back in this class, there's a wide receiver here that I've always really liked in college. I know he went to Missouri and didn't really produce as well as some would have liked. But I like Theo Weiss Jr. I think he's continued to develop in the right direction. He's good at contested balls. He's got the size. He's got the athletic profile. So I'm going to draft him here as kind of a flyer pick. I think he could be a player that could develop for them. And I like his speed profile. I think he's a guy who's physical as a wide receiver. And I think that could be a really fun pick for this offense. Back on the clock at pick 220. I think here, you could try to double up on offensive line, defensive line. If we see somebody we really like, I would love you guys to drop in the comments who you like. You know what? We're just going to do it. We're going to grab ourselves an athletic linebacker, and we're going to go Smile Mondon Jr. I went with Mondon because he's an athletic freak. This dude is big, fast, physical. I think in this defense, he could continue to develop. He doesn't have to step in and be a starter from day one. But when you're looking late in the draft, if you can get somebody with that kind of athletic profile, why not take a shot and see what you can do? Back up on the clock with our last pick, 254. I'm going to go with a running back just because I know there's a couple sitting here that I like at this point, and both of these two running backs could be guys that could develop for them. If they don't target one in free agency because of the price tag, they could double up in the draft, and it would not surprise me. Now, obviously, you have two varying styles of running back. Donovan Edwards gets tackled fairly easily, but is a big, potentially strong, explosive running back. Sanders does not go down nearly as easily. So I'm leaning Sanders just because he's just as big, just as physical, just as fast, but he's not as easy to bring down as Donovan Edwards has been throughout college. As much as I loved what he did at Michigan, I've got to go with Sanders here, and that gives you your draft. We got you a little bit of everything. We got you some edge help. We got you some running backs. We got you tight end, corner, interior offensive linemen. We got you some wide receivers ×2. We got you some safety help. We got you a little bit of everything. So you guys let me know. PFF said it was a solid B. Didn't love some of the picks, but did love some of the picks. You guys let me know in the comments below, and we'll talk to you later.